If you tuned in to the first installment, you watched as we destroyed a dilapidated old trailer, getting it ready to be our ultimate toy hauler. Since then, I cut the front off, and this is where we will pick it up today. So I got all the pieces cut off. This is obviously the front of the gooseneck where you'd have your pin that comes down. These are the two side rails. I did that. Basically, they're going to be cut anyway, so it's a lot easier to manage them. This is the piece we already saw built. Basically, I just welded it on. This is the actual gooseneck part, and that's the bed area. Again, cut it off just to ease the portability. I've got it in here. I'm not sure how I'm getting it out. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to square this up. I don't need all this hanging out. It's not going to be there for any reason. There's no support. I'll pull it back a bit, and I'm going to leave the sides going down so I've got more support. I'm going to do that with the plasma. I leveled up the frame before I shot the video. That way it's easier to get straight lines. You can just use a level instead of trying to figure it out. Those lines will be a reference for where I need to cut with the plasma. Okay, so we got this piece cut off. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to level this. I'm using the big level to make sure I'm going across the span, and then the small level gives me degree measures so I know how far I have to go. I level the long side first, and then I'm going to go front to rear to get the whole thing leveled up. I'm going to check all sides multiple times because as you raise or lower one corner, it affects the rest. Next, I'm going to measure the center and cut out the 4-inch piece for the 4x4 square that I want to weld in there. I did this just to give the leg coming down more strength. I used the combination of the bandsaw for the vertical cuts and the grinder for the horizontal cut to get that piece out. Took some persuasion with the hammer to get everything in place, and then I proceeded to level everything up again. The last thing is to make sure it's going back square. Okay, so I gotta pull that corner to that corner just a little bit. Now I'm just gonna pull this, hopefully over with the clamp. So with that in place, I'm gonna get some tacks here so it doesn't move. So here I just cut off with the plasma, so when I folded it in, it would create a nice angle. So I don't have the strength to bend that in my thing. I'm just going to take this right here. I used the plasma again to make that cut, and then hammered it down against the gooseneck hole. Once I finished this side, and then I finished welding the other side. Next I moved on to the angled front. I'm doing this because I've got a short bed truck, and I don't want to have to worry about hitting my cab every time I turn. I used straps of steel that I clamped to the bottom to hold this angled piece up. Unfortunately I lost some of my video, so you're going to miss the steps I took to align it. Next was putting the long stringer in place and measuring to make sure it was going back square and also level. When I was satisfied that it was level and square, I finished welded it. Moving on, I started by cutting the angle on the other side. Again, I used some steel straps to hold this up and align the bottom edge. Outside dimension was 102, but I measured here to be the same as the other side. I had this all jigged up in place, and I tacked here, and I put a tack on the bar so it doesn't move when I start putting it together here. The stringer for the other side was also aligned, and I didn't record it a second time because I didn't want to bore you with the same thing over and over. I made sure it was level and square, just like the other one, and welded everything all up. Some structure will be needed for the floor and the outside panels. So as you can see, I put a piece of 2x2 to the bottom. The angle iron will go 6 inches up to give me a spot to bolt the floor, and then I've also installed the vertical. So I cut the original bed frame area in half. It's going to be too short anyway, which is fine because I've got to plate the sides and then I will extend it. So I'm putting the piece up here, and I'm going to set this in place, tack this. I've just got little shelves made just to hold this up in place. With both bed frame pieces in place, an automotive jack worked really good to split the two stringers apart. Center to center was 68.5, so edge to edge should be the same. That's perfect. This section of tube was only used to keep the two bed frames level while I welded them in place. I got it tacked, removed the bar, and then welded clear around it. Okay, so I cut 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 pieces here, 18 inches long, and I'm going to make legs. I guess they're going to go on that. So there'll be 3 at the back because it's a 2x6 on the trailer at the back and then a 2x4 at the front. So the 2x4 will set like that, and I'm going to weld it up. That'll be the start, and then when I get this in place, then I'm going to go back with some plate, and I'm plating both sides. Here's one side. I'm going to bevel the other edge before I'm done. I made sure these were level and square before I finished welding them, so when it sits on top of the trailer frame, it should go right on and be straight and square also. For the front legs, the top of the trailer frame is 15 inches front to back, so I measure 15 inches in and weld the 2 front ones. Trying to get this ready to move for tomorrow, but we got one last thing is I want to build the sides for here and here and here. So that when I do take it out, I can just I'm going to use wood to start with, I'm not going to close it in, just so I can put a tarp over top and have a dry area. Clamping the 2x4s to the side of the frame gave me a great way to clamp the uprights and hold them in place while I figured out if that's the way I wanted to do it. One of these goes like this. Like this. Now I'm going to have to fill it in and put more in it. This is just to give me a framework and to hold up the tarp until I get some more steel. That's as close as I'm going to get. So I'm going to weld that up. Little bits at a time so I don't pull it. Okay, so I get that, I get this one tacked in place. Okay, I'm going to tack that one. All the uprights and top bars are now ready to be welded in place. That's good enough because I can control that. Let's see if I can push it. The engine crane picked up the frame and loaded it easy, and we strapped it down. Then we used a winch to pick the engine crane up onto the trailer. This was the last step before heading out to where the trailer's parked so we can weld it together. So we're backed up to it. There it is. That's what's cut off. Cut these off, and then all the bars going across. This is all going to come off. I just hadn't done it yet because I hadn't taken the switch off. I'm going to grind up there to get it ready, and as soon as I am, we're going to plug the welder in and go. We're all set now to put the framework on the trailer. I used the engine hoist to pick the frame up and set the legs in place. Then I put a jack under the gooseneck and held that up while I positioned the engine hoist back farther to pick the front end up. The trailer legs were dropped to make sure that it was sitting level, and I also leveled the framework that I put on before getting ready to weld. I'm sure you're asking yourself what idiot would be out trying to weld this up in the rain, but it's been so dry here that we've had 2 forest fire alerts already for evacuation, and I didn't want to catch the grass on fire, so this seemed like the most logical idea. All the legs were welded around the base, and then the engine hoist was used to pick up the whole trailer to make sure it held. If you want to see the progression of this trailer, make sure you subscribe and click that bell. With all the fires around, getting the Jeep on the trail is going to be tough. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll be adding the extra support and also starting the skinning process.